Good morning, everyone. We're talking about hair care, and that's just in the pregame show. Wait till you see the actual discussion. Thank you for joining the morning meeting.
I
Sean is
think Michael
back.
should come in with that beard. I mean, we should
Yes,
talk hair. Yeah.
grooming. Sean is back. Dan is here. I am here, and you're here. And thank you for joining. If you're here on the two-way platform, as many have already done, nice to see it. Carter, have you ever talked on this program before? No, you haven't. All right. So the
Oh,
show's
Craig
one third
Sherwin.
saved.
Craig Sherwin.
Craig's talked on this program before. But he may get in again today. Thank you for joining. Raise your hand if you'd like to get in the conversation. Be like Carter. Raise your hand for the first time and be part of this extraordinary conversation like no other. And if you're on X or YouTube, please don't raise your hand, but also please don't put smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding always here. And when I say don't put smack in the chat, some people find that hilarious. They find it kind of quirky or like a catchphrase like dynamite, or what's another good catchphrase besides dynamite?
Make America great again.
Make America great again, or Fonzie going, hey, and it is meant to be light, but it's a serious point. This program and all of the association of content around it, including the chat, is intended to be different than most other political conversations, which is to say, we don't really want hate here. We don't want people engaged in personal attacks. Spirited debate is fine. But when we say don't put smack in the chat, we mean don't go in there and write something racist, misogynist, hateful, hurtful. It's just not necessary, and it's not part of what we're trying to do here. So go put that someplace else. We love everybody participating, and we love having you exposed to new ideas. But a new idea shouldn't be a negative personal attack. All right, there you have it. Let's go. Elon Musk, forward-looking. We're being forward-looking. We don't care about yesterday's social media. We want to know what's happening next. Sean, do you believe that Elon Musk's efforts, both past and potentially future, will play a role in determining whether reconciliation passes or not?
No.
Agreed. Dan
got the answer.
Okay. Dan.
Yes, he will play a role.
How so?
Well, I think if he were to completely turn the algorithm on, so to speak, on X, if he were to start really promoting, unsavory parts of the legislation, promote opposition, like really start to try to stir trouble.
Yeah.
I think it would create enough of a headache that, no, I mean, I don't think it's going to change.
Did you watch Two Way Tonight last night?
I watched a little bit of it. I did not watch all.
Alex Castellanos and Steve Elmendorf. I said, if Musk hired you and said, guys, I'll spend whatever it takes to defeat this bill, they basically said, keep your money or give it to us, but it's a waste.
He's not going to defeat it. He's not. That what you didn't ask.
That's the question. That's the question. Is he going to play a role in the chances that it pass or not?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it zero. It'll pass 100%.
All right, Dan, Sean, do you have something else you want to say about that?
No, I was actually driving at this point, which is point of clarification here. A role or an effective role, because he may tweet up a storm, but I don't know that it's going to matter.
Okay, so my view is that if Donald Trump reacts negatively, that'll keep the story alive, and it's not his interest. So that he should just do what Caroline did and Speaker Johnson did and say Elon's got his own thoughts about the bill, has to do with his own personal financial interests, and just move on. But if he lashes
has there ever been an instance where Trump did that though? That he just he inserted himself into
Are you being sarcastic? You are. But don't you agree with me that in this case he'll probably just try to downplay it because it's not in his interest to fight
he
with
will
Elon.
and he will until he doesn't. He's going to at some point. Elon's going to, because Elon understands the game and he's baiting him. And so he wants the response. If Trump doesn't respond, and I agree, in the last 24 hours, they've handled this beautifully. But the question is, does Elon go, all right, let me ratchet it up one more notch?
Yeah. All right. We'll get to 26 in a moment. But again, Elon uses his platform, costs him nothing. It's a day trade. It's just, here's its 13 tweets about why this bill's horrible. Does he want to beat the bill? Like, does his goal to actually beat the bill?
No, he wants the EV mandates put back in.
Well, but he's not going to get it.
I think he wants more than that.
So you're so, I won't say cynical. You're so clear-eyed about your view of Elon that you say he's zero interest in whether this bill reduces the deficit. He's just using that as a wedge to try to change the bill to get his mandates put back.
Yeah,
that's what you.
If it tanks, he can say. I mean, because again, he wants to play power broker. So it's I'm going to blow it up. If I don't get my way, blow it all up. Then.
But what you're saying is Musk's play is I'm going to threaten to kill the bill and to withhold money from 26, and they're going to put my special interest sweetheart deal back in? He
No,
can't be that
I don't know
naive.
that he actually thinks that he'll get his way, but I think it's sort of like, since you guys screwed me, I'll screw you.
So it's pure. So it's purely
Right.
impetuous, immature. You screwed with me. I'm going to make your life difficult.
I call that spite.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mark, I don't think it's just the EV. I mean, I think he's really pissed about that AI deal that he got shoved out and it got leaked, because that is like his future fortune, or the next iteration of his fortune is AI. I think he's pissed off his buddy at NASA got, blown out on Saturday night and basically humiliated Elon Musk. I mean, I think it's a love series of things where he's just trying to cause trouble. He knows it causes people to talk about it. It causes anxiety, and he's having a little fun.
All right. Here's the real problem as I see it, which is he doesn't spend on the midterms, or he follows through. He follows through in his tweet and says he's going to spend on the midterms, but he's going to spend to beat incumbent Republicans. I don't know if he means primaries or the general.
You took my thing here. Yeah, totally.
But it also doesn't matter. Like, first of all, if you care about the deficit, if you're Elon Musk, and do you really think that the Democrats are going to give you a better deal ever? I mean, this is somewhat.
Elon, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Elon Musk does not care about the deficit. If he did,
I know,
he'd be spazzing dealing with Social Security.
I agree. That's why I'm saying exactly. I agree. That's why I'm saying he knows that he's in a box. He's got the best hand that he's ever going to play in terms of who's on the field. But I think this is a threat. He also said the other day that he wasn't going to spend in the midterms. So look, I think he's pissed. I think Dan is exactly right. It's not just one thing. It's a bunch of like bitter pills that he's been swallowing every day. And so it's now like, look, I can screw you back.
Yeah, but I think it may be a little bit more when you think about 26. I don't know, Mark, if you're jumping into this.
Yeah,
like,
go right to it.
Yeah, look, like I think he's also, I think, humiliated that he was used for kind of the Doge. And the moment it got a little wobbly and inconvenient, they ran him out. And so I think where he could cause trouble is if he says, Mark, to your point, I am going to back primary challengers with a lot of outside money to true believers in the debt and deficit, like a la kind of the Tea Party stuff. And he turns that platform algorithm on. He could cause trouble. I mean, in Wisconsin, he spent $30 million on now it didn't work. It was against a Democrat. But Sean, if you're a Republican and Uncle Elon picks off 30 people, says, I'm targeting you. It's just
I'm sorry, Dan, even if he hires the best people, as Nicole Wallace would say, and even if he spends unlimited money, I don't understand the profile of the challenger and the district to say, we're going to beat you in a primary by saying what? We're going to cut Social Security. We're going to cut more out of Medicaid.
It's the same fraud that Republicans have been using for years about spending cuts.
But I don't know how you beat someone in a primary that way.
I don't know if you'll beat them, but you'll rough them up. As a Democrat, I think
Trump. I don't even know that you'll rough them up. Trump's not going to endorse any of those candidates. I don't know how you recruit them. Sean, back me up.
No, I mean, it's not. This is. I think so. There's times in which it's way too. People are so simplistic about this. Like, I'm going to recruit 5 candidates and they're going to run against. Like, it doesn't work like that. No one calls you up on the phone and says, "Bob, get in the race. We got $20 million."
Musk here. I'll tweet on your behalf. And by the way, you're going to be running against the Trump endorsed MAGA candidate.
Right.
There's no there. There's literally. I don't think they could find one person to do it.
I think you would. Yeah, I think you would, because they'd become a little junior celebrity.
I don't see it. All right. Let's do a little McLaughlin. Exit question. Will Elon Musk be on Team Trump in the midterms? Yes or no? Dan?
No.
Sean?
No.
The correct answer is yes. We'll be right back with predictions. You guys really don't think he'll be on the team?
No, I don't think he would be against. Just to be clear, if it's a yes or no, then he's not on the team. But I don't think he's against anybody. So
I think he'll be writing huge checks for Trump. I predict he will back on the reservation because he's going to miss the access to power.
I don't think that's right. I don't think the money's what's gotten him. I think he can call President Trump right now and he'll pick up the phone. So I don't think that's and I don't know. I don't think he'll be against the team, just for the record. He knows that, but he's not going to be. I don't know that he'll be spending a ton of money. Part of the reason he's going back to Tesla and the SpaceX is I think his boards are a little pissed that he's been in this world for too long.
How much does $75 million in $100 bills. Does that weigh more than a ton? I don't know how much money weighs. Does it weigh more than a ton?
I tend not to.
Okay.
I don't either.
He'll be spending a ton. All right. China. There's so much going on with China, and obviously the tariffs and the prospect of a Trump-Xi call is getting a lot of attention. Talk amongst China hands that Xi's not interested in having a call with Trump, and that Trump keeps saying we're going to have a call this week, and Trump people keep saying that, and it may be an embarrassment that they can't get the guy on the phone. As the Secretary of Treasury likes to say, he's not the White House switchboard operator. Here's a story not getting enough attention. Number 104, please. U.S. charges 2 Chinese students with smuggling fungus. Arrest by the FBI comes with the Trump administration has promised to crack down on Chinese academics. We've had the debate here on another two-way programs about whether Chinese students who are not affiliated with the Communist Party or not here as spies should be allowed to study in the United States. That's a good debate. But I think it's fair to say that anyone who's bringing a deadly fungus here, for God knows what reason, probably shouldn't be allowed in. Dan,
I'll take that back. I'll go one step further. I just think any fungus, it doesn't have to be deadly.
Doesn't have to be deadly. All right.
There cannot be a fungus among us? Is that
Dan, will there be a Trump-Xi call this week?
Nope.
No. Sean?
No.
Woof. That's news, folks. Mark that down. No one else has said that. Everybody else is just waiting for it to happen.
I think the problem is it's pretty apparent who wants the call. China doesn't want the call. Donald Trump wants the call. Donald Trump wants the deal. I mean, look, just look at it this week. He's supposedly telling other countries, I want your best deal now. Right? So I want deals. I want deals. And he's saying to the Chinese, I want to speak. Get me on the phone. Get me on the phone. He looks desperate. He wants this ended. I've said this for months. How does he declare victory and get out? I think he doesn't know right now how to declare victory. And I think China right now feels like, I hate to say this because I want America to win. I think China feels like they have him by the you-know-what right now.
Sean?
I would not go as far as Dan did, but I do think that they don't want the call yet.
Yeah.
And they want to be in a better position to get something to know an outcome of the call.
I think they want to extract. I think they want us to feel a little bit of pain.
Yes.
I think they want these auto, magnets and other critical supplies to actually go into effect, to have headlines that, car production is being halted, people are being furloughed, prices are going up. And then they will say, you want to play, you want to keep doing this? We have a lot of dials to turn and Trump's stomach to go through this. That's the $1 million question.
All right, here's
can I just one point, which is to your point about the students and the fungus and the other stuff, Harvard, all that. It's if you're China and you're looking at this and saying, okay, you want to have a call about these business economic type issues, tariffs, tech trade, whatever. And then at the same time, you're saying we're going to kick all your people out regardless. It's hard for them to say, so let me get this straight. You're kicking us in the teeth. They're kicking us in the teeth. And you're like, hey, do you want to have a call? So there's a little bit of timing here that's an issue because you're trying to have a Treasury Commerce USTR strategy, and the State Department and DOD are saying, hey, we've got national strategic interest that we're going to go after at the same time. The sequencing is a little off, I think.
Here's my exit question on China. Besides the president and the vice president, who in this administration are the top 3 architects of America's policy towards China? Who are the top 3 architects? Dan.
Well, obviously, you said not including Scott Bessent?
No, not including the president and the vice president.
Okay, so Scott Bessent, Marco Rubio. I don't know who that third person is. So, Stephen Miller.
Sean.
Scott Bessent, Marco Rubio, and then Marco Rubio as the national security.
Yeah. Hilariously, those were exactly my 2 sets of answers. Making the Rubio joke and the correct answer, Stephen Miller, who's the answer on almost everything.
Yeah, right.
All right. Ukraine. There's a meeting in Europe today and another meeting tomorrow of Western leaders to talk about, amongst other things, what to do about Ukraine. 105. The absence of the Secretary of Defense from today's meeting He's getting a lot of attention. He's skipping the meeting and sending our friend Matt Whitaker instead, who's the U.S. ambassador to NATO. I talked to David Ignatius on Next Up about Ukraine, Russia, and David was, I thought, strikingly pessimistic about the prospect of Ukraine doing well enough on the ground in the absence of a peace deal, which he thinks won't happen, in order to have leverage by the end of the year to get a peace deal on somewhat favorable terms. Here is the legendary David Ignatius, 107.
The thing that worries me and most people, I think most, is the danger to Ukraine's cities as Ukraine's air defenses begin to run out. There just aren't enough interceptors in the world to keep firing at the number of missiles and drones coming in. And then the level of destruction for Ukraine that's beyond anything we've seen. That's my fear. That by September, those cities will be in much more ragged shape.
David has been to Ukraine many times, including recently, and throughout the interview, I was struck by how concerned he was that there was no good outcome here and that the administration doesn't seem to have a plan. Sean, what is the best case outcome for Ukraine now?
Ceasefire.
On what terms?
I mean, that's the well on no discussion of NATO membership, no further massive weapons transfers. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, this sort of becomes the $1 million question of like what surrounds that. I think it's starting to become clearer and clearer that Putin is not going to, like, he's willing to wait this thing out. And he's getting enough funding from oil and gas from Iran and North Korea and China that, like, he knows he's got enough of a lifeline, and he knows he can wait these guys out.
Yeah. One of the things David and I discussed was there were three, from the beginning of the war, there were three ostensible pressure points on Putin: Russian public opinion, Russian economy, and I'm like Rick Perry now, and not having enough bodies to throw at Ukraine because he was losing so many early on. None of those three are factors right now. None of those three are pressure on Putin. So, Dan, I know you've been bearish on this for a long time with your Ignatian sensibility. What's your view of the best case right now?
Yeah, Mark, that was a great interview, by the way. I did everything that you've just raised. You kind of all the evening. I was thinking about this last night. I don't know. I mean, I think to Sean's point, Putin doesn't want to stop. So I think a ceasefire, Putin will have to feel like he can't gain any more. So, like, in other words, does he really want to keep fighting for 3 or 4 more years? I don't think we've got the appetite to do that. I really don't think Europe does either. Like, if that was what they got on a conference table and said, we have 5 more years and hundreds of billions of dollars and arms, I just think people are like, yeah, no. And Putin knows that. So I think somehow to get a ceasefire and say, as Sean said, you're not going to go into NATO. You can't get any more territory. There's going to be some peacekeepers like we have in South Korea, like a DMV type of thing that you know, it's a tripwire. You can't go over it. And
did you guys look at the list?
Out Putin, he dies of cancer or whatever. I mean,
did you look at the list of what Russia wants right in this current set of talks?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They want them to like to legislate basically that Russian is the language of they don't want them teaching certain things in their schools. I mean, this is not a negotiation. This is sort of like what you would do if you defeated them.
I don't know if you read all the way down to the bottom of the list, but they wanted the Washington Wizards' next 2 first-round draft picks as well. Like they asked for everything.
Yeah, they can't have a defense. They can't have military.
Now, the one thing, and again, I'm keying off of what David Ignatius said. The Germans and the French and the Brits are actually in this
more serious,
in this pretty seriously. So it's possible that they could bridge it. But again, just the facts on the ground are just brutal. The drone attack might have, caused war historians to get all excited and give the Ukrainians a shot in the arm. But they're not gonna get Crimea back, and they're not going to be allowed to be in NATO. And the one bright thing, but it's a long-term bright thing, is, as David said, the one thing Putin wanted to stop, which is to have Ukraine not be European-facing, but to be Russia facing, he's lost. They'll never be Russia facing, at least unless Putin conquers the whole thing. All right. Last topic, or second to last topic, and then we're going to get to you all. So again, please raise your hand if you want to be in the conversation. Laura Loomer was back on the West Executive Avenue yesterday, meeting with the Vice President of the United States. 106. CNN broke the story that Laura Loomer met with the Vice President, and not clear what they talked about. This is an extraordinary thing. Forget if you want to scrutinize her background or her history. There are very many powerful people in Trump world who do not want Laura Loomer weighing in on administration policy, personnel, etc. And yet here she is meeting with the vice president. Dan, what up with Laura Loomer?
I don't know. I just find it remarkable, given how controversial she is and some of the things she said, that she appears to have kind of full access. That she can, I mean, it's not just, I mean, next to Trump, it's like to walk in and get a meeting with the vice president. I mean, that's a big deal. Sean, why is she meeting? Like, what is her latest grievance?
So remember, I look, the way I have to see this, I mean, like in terms of trying to provide analysis on this, is she's got supporters and detractors. And I think that, like, I without getting into a bunch of names, there are people in the first term who not in the same necessarily camp as Laura, but you sort of make a decision. Do you want them in the tent shooting out, or do you want them outside the tent shooting in? And there's clearly a decision that is, hey, we'd rather have her on the team with a voice that's coming after us than kind of going the other direction. That's the only way that I can look at this and say it makes sense.
All right.
Lastly, Mark, do you have any spidey sense of why she was there?
Yeah. They just, I mean, I agree with what Sean said. She's too powerful to not try to appease. She's got so much capacity to do damage, and she has enough allies that they feel it's better to hear her out and appease her. And I will say, and this will probably be the most controversial thing I say on the episode, some of the things she pushes are not wrong. And they're not only not wrong if you're super MAGA, they're just not wrong. Some of the things she says are factually correct and are troubling about the people she's going after. Not all of them, but some of them. And so they have to hear her out, because if they ignore her, she'll go public with it. And then they're going to have to get rid of the people anyway. And they're going to be doing it under much more pressure. Better, in the view of some senior people in the White House, to hear her out, see what she's got, make a decision on the merits, and act in response, and hope that she doesn't, walk down Pennsylvania Avenue with the head on a pike, claiming credit for it. That's better for them than the normal minuet of she demands they do it, they ignore her, she goes on social media or a podcast, demands the scalps, then gets them, and then they look weak.
So she has enough of a constituency behind her to truly cause trouble in Trump world. Okay.
Well, like the president.
yeah, no, I mean, that's what, well,
yeah.
You only need one follower, I guess.
He's good. All right. Lastly, I'm giving you guys dealer's choice. You can address one of two topics, up to you. You can either talk about the unexpected, surprising firing of New York Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau, or the collapse of the Dutch government, which, until I saw the AP story this morning on the homepage of the Associated Press, I confess I hadn't been following closely. Now you could quiz me for half an hour. Sean, which would you like to address?
The Dutch.
Yeah? What do you think? What are the implications?
Well, I can't say I'm probably, you would rather take economic advice from me than Dutch government relations, but they seem to have an immigration problem. And I think this is the overriding issue, is something that there's some parallels all around the world when these countries try to go too far in immigration. And again, I don't want to go too much further, because that's probably as much as although I will say my favorite line from which Austin Powers movie was it, where he, what is it? The big guy.
The one with Fat Bastard?
Fat Bastard. And he says, The only two things I hate are whatchamacallit, racist or discriminatory people and the Dutch. And it's like, anyway, that's as far as I can go.
Yes, I appreciate that. And I'm glad I knew that you, of course, we're talking about fat bastard. Dan, your choice, firing of Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau or the Dutch government collapse?
No, I was surprised when you texted me back that you thought this was bad. I think firing.
Why would you fire your coach? He gets you this far. You beat the Celtics. I mean, like, I don't want to bring this up.
I think it's as far as they could go with him. I mean, look, they lacked three things against the Heat 2 years ago, the Pacers last year, and this year. They lacked offensive creativity. Like, it is Jalen Brunson with the ball, pound, pound, pound. You have a lot of guys on that team who do not get involved. Their two best offensive runs that series just now were when Brunson was on the bench with foul trouble. Game 1 and game 4 and game 3, which tells you something. They've lacked discipline the last few years. They have large stretches where they look terrible and completely disjointed. So I think like the Lakers in 82, the Bulls getting rid of Doug Collins. Sometimes you get as far as you can and you need a new creative leader. Now, the risk is there are a lot of teams who have tried this and it's failed, but I'm supportive.
My rule of firing head coaches is the same as my rule for firing cabinet members. Don't do it till you have the replacement to announce the same day. And if they get a worse coach, it's going to be a disaster. Because I agree with you. He probably, and Sean said, he probably took them as far as they could. And he's not a perfect coach. Yep. But a bad coach, this team punched above its weight, though. They're not as good as they played, but they played that well, and you got to give him some of the credit.
See, I think that was true the previous 2 years. I don't agree with that this year. I thought they almost got to the finals this year. That's the amazing thing. They got so much talent, and they just never clicked.
Carter, welcome in. Oh, thank you for making your two-way debut. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you? What do you do during the day? And what do you call that thing on your face?
Something there with Kansas Jayhawks in his background there.
Yeah. Is that a beard, a goatee? What is that, Carter?
You got to unmute, buddy.
Oh, he's unmuted, but we can't hear him. Try again, Carter. Carter, you got a microphone? Do you own a microphone? There you go.
Yeah, I just haven't shaved in a little bit.
All right. So it's not a beard. You've been too busy to shave.
Yeah.
All right. Where do you live, Carter?
In Lawrence right now.
Yeah.
We just started break here, so.
We're very glad to have you. Are you a student at the college, university?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What are you studying?
Business admin.
Yeah. Who's the greatest basketball player, men or women, in the history of Kansas?
In the history of Kansas?
Yeah.
Probably Wilt Chamberlain, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Paul Pierce.
Yeah. How about Danny Manning?
That's Danny Manning. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he won a title, basically. Danny Manning.
Carter, Carter, how'd you find two-way amidst your studies?
When you went on Tucker Carlson.
All right.
I think you mentioned it, and I found it on YouTube.
All right. Well, we're very glad to have you here. We appreciate being part of the community. Tell us what's on your mind.
First, I was going to say Dan is right about the Knicks.
Fire the coach.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Carter.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm semi-convinced. I thought the guy did a great job, but anyway. Yeah. All right. That's number one. Number two.
And then I had two questions, kind of.
Yes, sir.
So the first one for Dan and Sean. Yesterday, someone brought up Palantir.
Yeah.
And their CEO, Alex Karp, is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
He's a left-wing guy. So I was wondering, like, Sean, are people inside the White House or people on the right? He's mentioned, like, he was happy to stop the rise of the far right in Europe. Stuff like that. Are people, like, do they have mixed opinions about Palantir and Trump tapping them for data collection or surveillance?
It's a great question. I was intrigued by the conversation yesterday, and I don't know the answer.
I think he's more libertarian, and he is kind of like Musk and the rest of them. I think Palantir was always very well hedged because their biggest worry going back to 9/11 was that there was bipartisan concern about the data that they harvested. And so they retained a pretty quiet but effective government relations team. They are so paranoid that when you bring a member of Congress to visit them, everyone but the member must remain outside. You cannot leave this one room. You cannot see anything. You cannot go anywhere. They're wild, but they're good at what they do. They're very good.
Carter, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, number 2.
And then number 2 was I know because I'm like libertarian leaning kind of. I really liked Vivek. And he's like mentioned if he were to become president, go back to 2019 level spendings. And why can't we ever cut mandatory spending? And why does Congress never address it?
Well, one answer is that the amount you save in terms of actually reducing the debt and deficit is very small because it's a very small portion of the budget.
No,
but it causes
mandatory spending,
mandatory. Yeah. Sorry, mandatory. They can. It's the problem is it's all controlled by demagoguery. The president has suggested he'll never do it, and everybody's afraid of the political repercussions. And it has to be done in a bipartisan way. You cannot change the programs unless it's bipartisan. That's just political reality. And nobody right now wants to hold hands and do a big deal. It's clear what you could do. Medicare is a little bit more complicated because it's got multi-facets. Doing Social Security is effortless. Everybody knows what you do. You'd hold current retirees and those nearing retirement fully solvent. You could sell it as saving the program. It's not to hurt people. It's to help everyone by saving the program. But no one has the courage to do it. The Democrats have won elections for decades, demagoguery on it. And Donald Trump took his party from the party who stupidly talked about it in a politically damaging way to a party that mimics the Democrats and saying, we'll never do it. Sean.
I'll agree with almost all of what you said. I would say on Social Security, I think it's still like the premise of it is ridiculous. Like it was never meant to be a retirement system. It was meant to be a supplemental retirement system. And there's a much, much better way, an effective way to do this for the American people. But just let me show you 108. Can we put up 108 real quick? Bueller. Here we go. That is what we spend on Medicaid, $695 billion. Under the House bill, we'll spend $847 billion. Now, I didn't take math in college, but I know that's more. That's, almost what, 150 something billion, $152 billion more in 9 years. And yet, if you listen to everyone in Washington right now, that's a cut because under the CBO baseline, they expect 986. So if you give someone less than they expected, even though it's vastly more, in Washington, D.C., that's a cut. This is what and if you can't sell that, then you can't sell, to Mark's point about the politics of this, then you can't sell any of these other reforms. This is the fundamental problem right now that Republicans have. They should be walking around with this chart. I tweeted it out today. It's on all my social media channels. If you can't, as a Republican, say, hey, 695, 847, show me the cut. You can't because it's more. And to answer your fundamental question, this is what when Mark was saying the politics of it. If you can't sell that, then you can't do anything else because that's the easy one. One of these other ones, you're not actually cutting anything. You're slowing the rate of growth or looking at reforms. And Republicans don't have the political will to sell the easy. So you're never going to do the hard.
Why don't they want to sell it right now, though? Like Doge, at least with our base, was popular.
It is. No,
it wasn't.
No.
With our
Look,
base it was.
No,
With our base it was.
This is, when you ask people, do you approve of the job that Congress is doing and you get 14%? And then you said you approve of your congressman and you get 70? Because it's the same thing. Do you want Washington to cut programs? Absolutely. Do you want a balanced budget? Absolutely. Do you want them to cut this program for this center in downtown Dubuque? Oh, absolutely not. So everybody's for it until it's like personal to them. Do you want them to do that? Yeah, here's a VA program. Do you want to cut military, veterans benefits that are a mandatory program? Absolutely not. Cut something else. So generally speaking, it's broadly popular. And then what happens is Republicans in particular realize we get no credit for it. We go out there, we talk about it, and then we get the door slammed in our face. So
hold on. Let's take a giant risk and dip into Fox, please. John Thune is on talking about Elon.
So there are just a lot of analysis around this bill that isn't accurately reflecting what will happen when all these policies are put into place. And by the way, it will be the biggest spending reduction in history. There's just no question about that. It's going to have huge savings in it, and we're hoping to enhance that here in the Senate.
Elon Musk is getting some strange new respect from Senate Democrats who last week, I think, hated him. But anyway, take a look at this.
All right, we can jump back. Sean, sorry, go ahead back on.
No, that's it. I just, again, I think Carter, I agree. To me, the debt is a national security issue. It's an existential threat to our future existence, and no one will talk about it. I give Ron Johnson a lot of credit for actually being willing to continue to explain. You mentioned the 2019 pre-pandemic levels. This is not like, there is no such thing as a cut in Washington. They don't know what that is a word that is foreign to them. It's slowing the rate of growth. Everybody still gets more money. If you have $6, you ask me for 10, I give you 8. In Washington, that's a $2 cut. That's the mentality that is too pervasive. So the Doge found, let's just be generous, $150 billion. They sent a rescission package of $9.5 billion. Like, this is not serious. And I think that Republicans need to step up to the plate and say, and this shouldn't have been on Elon. They're forgetting that I know yesterday I did watch. So, they have a responsibility constitutionally to be the power of the purse. Like, it shouldn't have been on Elon. God bless him for a lot of the work that he did. But this should be on them. Every one of these committees should be going through their budget and saying, whatever. But when I was the budget committee spokesman back in the early 2000s, we asked every committee for a 0.5% reduction under the reconciliation instructions, and they freaked out. 0.5%. It was like, what are you doing? This is insane. And that wasn't even like a smidge. So it's just not in the political DNA.
Yeah,
I
Carter.
think the biggest problem, Carter, is Donald Trump doesn't believe in it. He never has. He didn't as a business. He just doesn't. If Trump leaned into this, it happened. At least within the party.
I still think he might do it the last 2 years, but no one but me thinks that, and one member of the cabinet does. Carter, if Sean and Dan came to Lawrence, how big a crowd could they draw?
Ooh.
Honestly, it'd be bigger than you think, probably.
Well, you don't know how big. I think it'd be 400.
That's an indirect insult. Yeah.
If they both, I think they could fill up our big lecture hall.
How big's that?
If they advertise it.
How many people?
400, 500 people.
500 people. How would we advertise it? On the internet that you kids use?
Yeah. Charlie Kirk came.
How many he get?
I think he filled up Butte Hall, the big lecture hall.
Yeah. Sean and Dan combined, way more popular than Charlie Kirk. I mean, no disrespect to Mr. Kirk.
When I was at H&R Block, I was really bummed. A bunch of the guys there and women had season tickets to KU basketball. And I was supposed to go out one night to see Kansas. I think it was Kansas State, when Kansas State was also top 10. I couldn't do it. I always was bummed I never got to Fog Allen. Always bummed.
Yeah. Carter, Thunder and 6? Thunder and 6?
In 5.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Yep. I hit Jim Banks up for tickets to the second game in Indiana. So there'll be a second game.
I think the Knicks are going to hire Michael Malone. I'm a Nuggets fan. We fired him this year. They're going to hire him.
Keep an eye on Danny Hurley.
All right. Those are good choices, both, I think. Carter, thank you for coming on. Tell all your friends and check availability dates on that big lecture hall.
Yeah.
All right.
Would you football now is legit.
Would you be willing to introduce Sean and Dan at the event?
If they came, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, just trying to build the event.
If asked, he will serve.
Thank you. If asked, he will serve. Carter, thank you. Very grateful to you. Great questions. All right. Is it pronounced Veni or Vini? I apologize. The front end.
You got to hit the mute button there.
See if we can ask.
Oh, there you go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How do you pronounce your name?
Veni.
Veni, thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are and what's on your mind, and thank you for being a part of Two Way.
So I'm in Bergen County in New Jersey. I actually have a question for Dan. Why Democrats they fight so hard for the trans right issue and the immigration issue? Why don't they just moderate? I think once they moderate on that, it's going to be, then you can start about talking about policy and so on. As I have two kids, I have two girls, and when I saw a bunch of like trans athletes last week winning all of the gold medals, it just disheartening. And I live in a pretty affluent neighborhood in Bergen County, and yet I know people that die from fentanyl that's smuggled in by the immigrants. And I used to live in Cincinnati too, and I saw people OD like right in front of my house one time, and I just don't understand it.
Great set of questions. I think on the first one on trans, I think it may relate to the second one too. I think the belief in parts of the party is if you give an inch, you're going to lose a mile. So what I think is common sense, which is to say young, kind of pubescent boys and girls just evolve and grow so quickly at varying rates that it is just not fair to potentially have a like 16-year-old biological man playing sports against 16-year-old girls, right? The strength and athleticism and speed can be just massive material differences where you put someone at risk. What someone does at age 30, right, is very different. If somebody wants to be transgender, they shouldn't be, beat up on the street because they made that lifestyle choice, just as if they chose to be gay, right? I think most people are kind of there. But they just feel like if we start saying in some instances it's not appropriate, we're on a back foot. I think on immigration, it's maddening for the same reason, because the initial theory was if we crack down on immigration, we will lose the Latino vote. And this is part of the coalition of the ascendant of the Obama administration. And we're going to put, Nevada is ours, and we're going to put Arizona in play, and the dream of Texas and Florida and all of this. What has become very apparent, and Trump, to his credit, was consistent, Latinos support cracking down on illegal immigration. They do not revolt. It did not drive them to us. Obviously, Trump, they care about the economy and all these other things, safety, crime. So I think there is just this view amongst a very small part of our party that you cannot admit on any of this that it's real. But common sense tells you it is, and voters have, we've paid a huge price for denying the obvious.
So, Vinny,
by the way, it's interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
It's interesting. In my town in 2016, Trump won by like maybe 300 or 100 votes, and then he lost to Joe Biden. But in this election, he won by like maybe 900 or almost 1,000 votes. That just show you like how unhappy people with Democrat position. And I want to tell Mark, because he kept telling people to tell people about morning meeting, and I try to tell one of my family member, my sister-in-law in New Hampshire. She has two boys, and she was volunteering for the Democratic Party during the election, and she said that Son Spicer is definitely far right, and Mark is right, and Dan, you're like leaning right. It's like, okay, I can't even like start to kind of like understand that.
Yeah. You sure you weren't talking to my family?
Did you ask her for evidence?
Well, she just said that like you guys are like Mark and Son using like basically Fox News talking point, which I don't think she ever watched Fox News, and yeah, and I don't know, I just don't. She's a very nice person, but once you're in one team, you go in one team. I just don't understand that mentality.
Yeah. Really appreciate it. And all I'd say is bring her, ask her to come once and talk to us. See if she'll come once.
I made her watch once and with me, and then she just
yeah. All
she
right.
just don't.
Ask her
I will
to come,
say,
we'll call on her. Go ahead, Sean.
She's definitely right about. I will say she's at least 1/3 right. I'm very proud of my conservative bona fide. So thank you. I just on the topic at hand, there are two sort of interesting things about this. One is at the end of the day, politics is a game of addition. And if you are going to the lowest common denominator for your support, it's just a mathematical problem. And that's the issue, is that they continue to alienate people by issues that should be common sense. So you think about like just the border alone. Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton all used to talk about a strong border. That wasn't an ideological issue. This is a national issue, right? This to me was an unavoidable political issue. Being strong on the border is something that should have transcended parties, and they blew it on that. And that's the thing, is that it was President Trump in many cases will say these are common sense issues. And he's absolutely right. To lose people on the border, and when you see all of these groups that the president continued to increase his vote share, you mentioned your place there in Bergen County. Absolutely. Even we saw it from country to country. The last thing I'll say is, and this is not meant as a pejorative, but it's just, I think, a reality. Dan can tell me if I'm wrong. But I think the problem with the Democratic Party today is that it's become a patchwork of mini coalitions. That it's not like it's like we'll fight for you, but there's no broader sense. Like we probably did better with the gay community this year under Donald Trump than ever before. But it's because they took something that was an issue and went too far. So I just think that the problem when you're looking at things as a patchwork of coalitions to win on, when you lose one of them, it makes the addition harder.
Yeah, it took me a while to understand American mentality because I'm originally from Indonesia. If there's a politician from Indonesia that run on like letting immigrant in, there's like zero, like they will get zero votes. So it took me a while to understand American mentality about immigrants.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't necessarily think the party is like open border, let them all in. I think how do I say this? I think the view was some of these people were escaping, bad situations in their home countries, right? With persecution, like civil unrest, etc. And I think the kind of like bleeding heart liberal in them was like, oh, we need to allow them in. We shouldn't be sending them back. But like anything, once you kind of open the spigot, everyone tries to rush through, right? Like, and they just, again, thought if you crack down, like, where do you draw that line? And it was a small number of ideological people in the party who felt that way. It is not where the majority was, but the majority didn't have the kahunas to stand up to them. And that was the problem. It is the problem.
They should listen to you.
Benny, how'd you find out about two-way?
Megyn Kelly. So I listen to Megyn Kelly every day, and I listen. You were guest on there, and then I start listening to it. I usually in the morning I listen to the daily. In the afternoon I listen to Megyn Kelly, and then new edition is morning meeting. Not new. I mean, I've been following you guys since like before November last year.
All right, Benny, here's a big reveal I was going to say for the end of the show. Later today, guess what 3 morning show hosts are going to be on the Megyn Kelly program? I'll give you a hint.
Oh, you guys?
One of their names rhymes with Mind Dicer. Yes, the 3 of us will be on with Megyn later today. So
that would be a fun episode.
Yeah, you can get more of us there. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Bring your sister. Next time you come. Grateful to you. I enjoyed the other day, Sean, I don't think you saw this on 2-Way Tonight. A woman said I was clearly very right wing, and I asked her for evidence. And you know what she offered up? She said female intuition. That was her evidence.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There is something.
Yeah. There's something to that, but not in this case. Diana, welcome in. Thank you for coming back. You're not our third new person today, but you're a valued returning viewer. Tell us, folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, please.
I live in Tennessee. I'm about to move to Florida to be with a grandchild, so that's good.
Smart move.
Yes. I'll be 10 minutes away from him, so that's absolutely perfect. So my question has to do with foreign policy, and it's like 2 parts. We have, I believe, a new president of South Korea right now. I believe he won. And I I've read about this, but I'm not seeing any commentary on it. And what he wants to do, or has said as part of his platform, is not be as negative towards China and North Korea, and to become less dependent on the US. And that to me is a very frightening state of affairs, because if you can't count on South Korea, who can you count on? The second part of this is just, if I was a leader of another country, I might kind of do what he's doing, because if with every election we switch our positions towards certain countries, America seems to become a less reliable ally or enemy or whatever. And so I almost wonder if we aren't going to see Qatar and Saudi Arabia and everybody else doing the same thing. So specifically to Sean, but I'd like everybody's feedback. Specifically to Sean, what do you think is the administration's response to what's going on with South Korea? And do you see this as becoming part of a wider pattern? And what in the world are they going to do?
Spectacular question. Sean.
Yeah, great question. He's definitely more progressive. There's no question about that. I do think that there's a big difference, though. I mean, our involvement in South Korea and the DMZ is a little different than most countries. So we have a military presence there that in a way that we don't necessarily, and even others, where we have bases. I mean, that's a much different base because of the work that they do and the armistice that they maintain. So I think that's a unique situation. I think that there's too much sometimes reading into who got elected and why, because even down Australia had their prime minister was reelected for the first time in forever, and everyone's trying to read into it. There's a lot of parochial issues that go into other elections that I think we as Americans always want to believe. I mean, even the Vatican, when they, everyone's like, how much did Trump play into the election of Pope Leo? That being said, I think the part of your question that's important is that how we deal with our allies is important. And there is a balance between fairness, both in terms of tariffs and market access and things like that, or like NATO commitments in the case of our NATO allies. Like we need to make sure that we are treated fairly, that they uphold their obligations under certain agreements. So I think a lot of it comes down to process. But I do believe that, and I said this before, and I'll reiterate it when it comes to China, is that there is a difference. You may sometimes not like how we're doing things, for example, on tariff policy. But there is a big difference between us having a fight or a discussion or a squabble even over tariff policies than what China has to offer. And I think that is sort of the bigger existential question that other countries need to ask, which is, you may not like sometimes how we handle our internal issues, but does that mean that you run to the devil?
Yeah, let me add one little thing, if I could.
Please.
So like, I have family that lives in Israel. I have friends who have actually gone over to the Ukraine and volunteered, and they were actually over there when the war started, and they volunteered in the orphanages and everything else. So I look at the foreign whatever, and I actually think we're in World War III. I think we're in World War III, and it just hasn't blossomed yet, because you usually don't know you're in a world war until, I think it's like Yuval Harari said, it's in retrospect you see when it started. So I look at alliances as very important in the event that we just really do end up with somebody with a nuclear weapon, somebody with whatever, and we at that point know we're basically have gone down that path. So I support the tariffs. They hurt me, but I support them because I think we got to figure out how to control China. I think somehow that comes in, and I view a lot of things that we're doing as being opposing China and trying to figure it out. That's why South Korea freaked me out. That's why it matters so much to me where the countries are lining up, because at the end of the day, I actually, outside of Israel, don't know of another country that I think will stand by with the U.S. in fighting. I have no idea where anybody else is going to go. And the fact that we've got the basis in South Korea, that's great. But you know what? If the South Koreans let China bomb them, then there you go.
How about the Canadians, Diana? Don't you think they'd stand by us?
Well, I don't know. No, actually,
okay.
I have no idea.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, it's such a great question. And I think it really gets to the crux of the challenge for the next 3 years for Donald Trump, because I think you and he and Mark's been saying this, that the game is about China. It's all about China, which is actually a bipartisan thing. You know, Obama tried to make the pivot. Biden, you know, Trump in his first term kind of wanted to make a bigger pivot. So did Joe Biden. The world's gotten in the way of that. But you're right. If the game is China, you would want to try to get everyone in the world, or as many as you can, aligned. I worry that the Middle East is transactional and they're our friend until, you know, they're going to be friends with us and friends with China, which is why all these AI centers that they're going to build there is worrying a lot of people who say they'll sell the technology through the back door to China or the highest bidder, because that's, you know, their history is to be very transactional. And I think Trump threatened to pull troops out of South Korea, if I don't recall, like early when he was on the campaign. And then when he first got in here, you know, look, we're hitting Vietnam hard on tariffs. We're hitting South Korea super hard on tariffs. Indonesia, you would think that you would be saying, what can we do to get you not to play ball with your neighbor? Because if you're one of those powers, China's on your doorstep. We're 8,000 miles away. You know, like that's a big risk to say the United States is going to come to our defense that far when China, and I think that's why Taiwan, I don't think will defend Taiwan ever.
No.
Yeah.
You know,
Diana,
and so what do you do?
Yeah, Diana, thank you. Really grateful. I love having you on. Grateful to you for being part of Two Way. And
Thank
I'll
you,
just
Gabby.
I'll just sorry, I muted you a little prematurely. I'll just say again, miracle at Two Way. Our questioners are fantastic. Just smart and thoughtful, and not the kind to put smack in the chat. Sean, what do you have tonight?
We got a double header. We got Andy Harris, who's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, and Chairman Jim Jordan. We're talking big, beautiful bill. So, yeah.
Together, separate?
Separate, one after another.
Yeah, sequential. And as I said, all three of us will be on with Megyn Kelly on Sirius XM at noon, and then later on YouTube. Dan, anything you want to preview?
No, I got nothing but we with you guys.
All right, noon today on Two Way. Citizen McCain, Megan's guest.
I hate these things.
Yeah. Hold on.
Sometimes
Kill that
you
audio.
just want a human.
Kill that audio. Thank you. Dan Crenshaw, Congressman Dan Crenshaw will be Megan's guest. And then at 6 o'clock, Two Way tonight, Orrin Cass, the founder and chief economist of American Compass and the author, editor of a forthcoming book called The New American Conservatives, will be on. And he hosted last night Secretary of State / National Security Advisor Rubio and the Vice President. And then also joining Two Way tonight, Larry O'Connor, a fellow named Larry O'Connor. I think you'll enjoy him. And Nomi Konst, who's on regularly and is an awesome guest. And then right after Two Way tonight at 7, Bridget Fedesi is on with her show on comedy, satire, and subversiveness as an art form. And if you've not sampled Bridget's show, please do. If not for Bridget, for her amazing set. And again, she's on at 7 o'clock. And then, as I said, the new episode of Next Up has dropped. David Ignatius, Senator from Indiana, Jim Banks, and my view of the media's latest folly. And a reminder, sponsorships for our programs are filling up fast. But if you'd like to be a sponsor of a two-way program, contact us. Send us an email, sponsors@twoway.tv. If you'd like to be a sponsor, we can talk to you about how the two-way sponsorships work. They're a little bit different than the normal available sponsorships, and we can explain to you how. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Great questions. And we'll be back in 23 hours for another edition of this program. Sean, Dan, anything you want to say in conclusion?
I'm actually excited. Just, I've been working hard on my winners and losers for Friday.
Yeah.
They're already locked in. So if something happens today,
really?
I don't know what I'll do. Yeah. And I'm going to get you, neither one of them, you'll guess. Neither one.
I get up at 2 a.m. on Friday morning and just start plowing through options. So I would never lock in early, but to each his own.
I know, but these are two. I'm proud of them.
Do you already know what you're looking for this weekend? Or is that too soon?
I've got some wiggle room on that.
Got it. Okay, good to hear. Gentlemen, have a good day. Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you at 6 for two-way tonight.